Welcome back to the Shared Practices podcast. Our season on growth. We're actually going to get to growth in this episode, which is exciting. Last few episodes have been personal and leadership growth. This is now the practice growth that everyone wants to dig in here, but they really need that foundation first. So if you haven't listened to part 1 and 2 with Dr. David Maloley, please go back and listen to those episodes. They've been phenomenal conversations. The SprintRay Pro 3D printing ecosystem gives you the tools to manufacture all kinds of treatment appliances right in your office. You can use it to make clear aligners, occlusal guards, full arch surgical guides, dentures, and much more without the long wait times and fees of traditional labs. Printing with SprintRay Pro is actually incredibly cost effective. Most appliances like occlusal guards, digital dentures, and clear aligner models can be printed for just a few dollars in material cost per print. Printing allows you to skip the lab bill and unlock the benefits of your existing investments in digital technology, including your intraoral scanner. With SprintRay Pro, you can pay for your investments in just a few months with incredibly cost-effective aligner production, occlusal guard delivery, or in-house printed surgical guides. Printing in your office is a great practice builder, allowing you to deliver custom treatment to your patients without the long lead times and fees associated with traditional labs. Accelerate the investments you've already made in digital technologies by adding SprintRay Pro to your digital workflow. SprintRay has done something pretty awesome for Shared Practices listeners. If you go to sprintray.com/SP, they've put together a bundle where if you order the SprintRay Pro, which is the printer that I have and use now, you'll get 2 free bottles of resin that go with that. So once again, go to sprintray.com/SP. Dr. David Maloley, welcome to the show.
Richard, it's awesome to be with you again. Thank you.
This is fun. So this season, I've been afraid of this season for a while on growth, because we're going to call it a marketing season. Growth gives us liberty to kind of do whatever we want with it, because so much plays into growth. But marketing is one of those things that can be just nebulous, and people can get bright shiny object syndrome. People can go down a lot of different rabbit holes and pathways. And so we'll talk about marketing in this episode, but it's part of this bigger picture that you've got, this framework that you've got where you work on the personal side of things, you work on people, and you work on your practice. So give us the 3 topics within practice that can be worked on, and one of those is marketing. So what are the other 2?
Yeah, if I could set the foundation first, like really philosophically, these are all integrated. And I know that if I optimize my team for confidence, the practice grows. And I believe that the practice always has to be growing, because I don't like the alternative, which is dying. And so I'm living from that mindset of either we're growing or dying, and I don't like the alternative. Like this is a non-negotiable to me. So if I'm going to be expanding the capabilities, the courage, the capacity of my team members, I have to be the role model. So we started with personal growth and then moved into people, our relationship with those people, the influence piece. So this is all optimized to drive the growth. And if we've respected those other 2 processes, this gets really easy. And I've intentionally made it so because I know you and I hang with a lot of people who in the industry who are entrepreneurial minded, but we also have to respect the middle of the bell curve, like the hardworking people in our industry, the high integrity, servant-minded people will ignore this. And so this model is meant to create high output without a whole lot of work. And so we've set the stage where a dentist now has more time and energy, and they can respect that they're a CEO of the business. And how do we make sure that they can have some control without getting lost in the weeds of a complex reporting system, and really making sure that we're trending upward in a few things. And those 3 things that you asked for are marketing, innovation, and cost control. And I need to give credit to the legend Peter Drucker. He said that a business has 2 and only 2 functions: marketing and innovation. Excuse me, all the rest are costs. So I distilled that down into these 3 things. And it's really true that you're not oversimplifying, because you can drill down and unpack a lot of systems within the practice here. But if you're looking to make sure that you're constantly getting better in the enterprise, you really just have to look at these 3 things.
I love that. And I love that one of the things you just said about championing the section of dentistry that is not this like let's build and scale this for the sake of building and scaling. It's the dentists who say, I like doing dentistry. I like seeing patients. I like taking care of my community, but I need help with this. Um, that's the segment. Our show. I've noticed trends in dentistry. I think multi-practice kind of got glorified for a while, and I kind of got pulled into that. I think also our show has the tendency to glorify the multi-doc practice. The 2 or 3 doctor dental office that's kind of scaled. But I want to make sure that the solo doc office still has the voice and the empowerment and the potential that's there, and is nothing less than a bigger office. And to then take this idea of running a practice and say marketing, innovation, and everything else is cost control. So many dentists don't want to be marketers. For a long time that was literally a dirty word. I think we're past that, and industry as a whole accepts that marketing is part of it, but then it's like this, how do I do this, and who do I pay, and who do I trust, and this is going to be expensive. What percentage of my budget, and what happens if I get burned? All of these things. There's a lot of like resistance to learning marketing. Talk to that for a bit. Have you seen that in dentists, and how have you dealt with that yourself?
Oh man, this is such a big conversation, and it creates some angst inside me, because I know there's a sector of those that market for dentists that are way better at marketing themselves than they are their clients. Mm. And so what I'm trying to do with this mental model is make sure that you're smart enough not to get burned, that you know that marketing means that you put in $1 and you get out 2. It has to be an investment. And if it's not, it's a cost. And then we go to cost control and we have to get rid of it. So I actually think it's gotten easier with time, but there's non-traditional mindsets that we have to apply to this. So going back to our previous episode, if we haven't nailed goodwill, if we haven't built trust, if we haven't built rapport, if we haven't exceeded expectations consistently, marketing is a freaking nightmare. Because what you're trying to do is teach your business to market itself. And you can get to the point where you can't see all the new patients at no costs through reviews and referrals, but it has to be founded in trust. And so there's no shortcut here. Initially, I was a startup, like literally $10K a month out the door, testing radio ads, marketing ads, TV. I was the be everywhere guy until I figured out what was working. Completely out of my comfort zone. I would get on the radio with the country station shock jock, and he would embarrass me. And I don't even want to tell you the stuff that he would bring up and make me do. But it all was a learning process. And that's the key to marketing, is that you're testing and then you're getting feedback and you're doubling down on what works. The second piece that I think is really important, that's not commonly talked about, but one strategy that's made me over $1 million, no doubt about it, is a referral strategy. So if you can take one new patient in the door and turn it to 2 or 3, now you've got a growth curve that's not linear. And that's where the magic happens. So if your marketing assets are working and you're not using a referral system, then it's not intelligent marketing. So if you haven't built it on trust, and if you're not deploying a referral system, those are your first 2 mess steps. The third one that we all know about is close the back door. So case acceptance gets a lot less intimidating if you know that every appointment has an appointment to a point or another appointment, because then you get another shot at it. There's no pressure, right? You're just onboarding them at whatever pace. You're doing whatever it takes to build trust and rapport. And sometimes I'm a fast sale and sometimes a slow sale. And you have to appreciate that each person is a little bit different. So the key to marketing is being marketable. And if you haven't orchestrated an environment that builds trust with patients, if you haven't orchestrated a culture, you've made marketing so much more expensive, so much more trial and error. So you have to start with that. Like understanding that the smell of eugenol that people hates, that's anti-marketing. Understanding that the patient that shows up 10 minutes late because they know they never get seated until 15 minutes after, that's anti-marketing. And so I think Fred Joyle helped shine a light on this early on. And I bought his book, Everything is Marketing, for every single person I hired. Whether they read it or not, I don't know. But the title says enough that there is no neutral. How you answer the phone, how you seat the patient, what the ceiling tiles look like. All of these things are either a step forward or a step backward. And once you start to understand that, then it doesn't become so expensive. You can do all this guerrilla stuff that's really easy. And the thing that wasn't available to me that's available now is that you have an employee that you despise because they won't get off social media. You can leverage that talent, because what people are looking for is a human connection to you before they have a human connection to you. And so if they can Instagram, TikTok, Facebook it up and paint you all in this light that's human, not a white coat, not a bunch of diplomas on the wall, but a team that has fun, a team that has uniqueness, a team that you go fishing with your kid and that gets posted. That's trust, that's rapport, that's humanizing you, so that they don't care that you're the fellow in the whatever A, B, C, D, E. They really don't. They want to know that you're well trained. They want to know that you're competent, but they also want to know that you're kind and compassionate, and that they'll feel safe in your environment. So I think a discussion of marketing in this modern era has to start with that. Other than that, there's all sorts of tactics, mediums, messages, offers that we can go into. But I think it's infinitely easier knowing that you may be shooting yourself in the foot with this, like, hey there, like, check me out. Like, I started with the Sonicare offer. It worked amazing.
Right.
It was a freemium model where you think you're getting this, but I'm giving you this as well. To me, that makes, like, I hate the race to the bottom, the discounts. Like, you bring in somebody with a discount, like, you've created a bait that caught a fish, and then you complain that they just want to know what the price is. Like, sorry, that's the bait that you put out there. So I'll follow your lead in this discussion, but I think we need to frame this as a much more robust conversation, because now hiring becomes a marketing activity.
And that concept and it shows why everything we talked about in the last two episodes matters so much. This everything is marketing, every piece of the patient experience, start to finish, the feel of the office, the conversations that are going on in the office, the laughter in the hallway that we talked about in the last episode. All of that is part of your marketing, because it's part of the experience of being at your office, and therefore the trust that your patients have and they convey through referrals, through reviews online, through interacting with your team. I think this, everything you just said about social media and showing up online as a real person is kind of the next frontier of both of establishing trust before the patient walks in the door, by letting them see what it's like to be at your office, to be this person, and highlighting each team member. Like I'm at the point where I would love to have like a videographer that makes like a highlight reel of each team member, showing them at their best, or, their favorite outside the office activity. Whether they love working out, or they love, playing a sport, or spending time with their kids, or volunteering, or at their church. Like, you want that kind of thing. Takes a while to build trust and a reputation online, presence online that's real and authentic. And it feels like maybe to some people a waste of time. It's like, I should just be doing more dentistry. Why am I messing around with the social media stuff? But if done well, it can be this engine of trust, this engine of attention, and this engine of patients wanting what is being displayed online. And that's where we're going as a society. So I mean, the better you can get at that game, the better off you're going to be.
I think I'm a really astute customer, but if I'm being frank, if I get an appointment at a new doctor's office, I'm at least going online and looking at a picture and making a determination of whether they look trustworthy or not. Like, that's the, and we have to understand that the average patient is coming in scared and skeptical. There's some level of anxiety there. And if you can do anything, particularly these things we're talking about are evergreen, they're highly leveraged. Like, once the asset is deployed, it's always out there. They can look at your 7th post on Instagram from 2 weeks ago and know a little something about you. And the other thing that I think is important to mention is that we're not trying to attract everyone. So being human, being who you are, will get you patients that will stay, and keep the patients who would never stay. It keeps them from making a first appointment. So it's a magnet and a repellent at the very first time, where as a slick offer doesn't provide that same like leverage.
Yeah, and the ability to do this, it's also going to depend on who you are. And some people are not the extrovert who lives online and lives on social media, and that's okay. Doing a little bit of this up front, investing in a good video, in a good website. I get mad if I go on and there's a provider that doesn't have a website. I get so frustrated. I'm like, you might as well not exist at this point.
It's your store.
So there's a baseline that's expected. And then after that, what works for you and what works for your office is going to be the trial and error. I want to know, how do you get on a radio show, and it is expensive, and did it work?
It worked amazing. Like I became Dr. Dave in the community. It was during the morning drive. The guy was named BT. It was ski country in the morning, and he would just invite me in. Like I was paying for ads, but this was all bonus stuff, which worked far better than the ad. And so he would ask me about my family. Like he would call my wife hot, like all of these things, like so embarrassing, but like it really attached people to me. And the moms would come in and say, oh, my kids always get excited when Dr. Dave is on the radio, that sort of thing. So it's completely out of my norm. Like I grew up painfully shy, but this is what gets people attention. And so we're always feared to market because we're scared of people might think, right? Like I get it. And we want to appeal to everyone. But once we dispel that notion that not getting out there, not doing the uncomfortable things means that, as Zig Ziglar says, that timid salesmen have skinny kids. I had a newborn, and I was like, that's a call to arms. Like I'm not going to have, like things were tight in the startup mode. Like I'm not going to be the timid salesman. I'm going to do what is required to make this practice robust. And that meant pushing my comfort zone again and again and again. But the beautiful thing about pushing your comfort zone with marketing is it expands. So what's uncomfortable now isn't uncomfortable in 3 weeks. You're put on the silly birthday hat. You do the Halloween dress up thing, and it attracts people to you, and you're just having a little bit of fun. There's no reason why a dentist has to be this professional robot automaton that like delivers, treatment plans and then does the treatment. It's a tired notion.
For me, the next frontier that I'm both terrified of and excited about is TikTok. I've recently been turned on to TikTok in the last month. And before I thought it was just this place that teenagers danced and I avoided it. But there's these whole sub communities. It's just like podcasting. It's like there's a TikTok for, home reconstruction, and there's, for traveling, and even dentistry. There's dentists on there. But it requires, what does well on TikTok is authentic human experiences and interactions.
Mm-hmm.
And on video. So you have to be willing to get on video, record stuff, fail, and put yourself out there. That's in the next year. That's my goal is doing some uncomfortable marketing on TikTok. We'll see how it goes.
What a shift. I mean, I was in dental school and they said good dentists don't need to market. Like that's like used car salesman tactics. And I would say in today's society, like the best marketer wins. And if you can couple great marketing with great service and great clinical care, like you can go to any market. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. That's what I did, but doctor to patient ratio and rise to the top very, very quickly with those three things. And we were mentioning Dan Kennedy before. I mean, it's a paradigm shift. He said the most important day in an entrepreneur's life is when they stop being the doer of the thing and start being the marketer of the thing. So if you can stop being the dentist, the technician, and know that you're the marketer of dental services, you'll do more of the dentistry you love to do. You'll add more confidence. You'll remove more pain and shame, all of those sorts of things. So know what the cost is of not being the best marketer in town. It's colossal, not financial, but just in all of the things you thought you wanted to be as a dentist. The front end is marketing. It's reviews, it's referrals, it's social media presence. It's all of these things. The net result of that is the vehicle that can kind of take you anywhere in your career.
Um, you saying that just now triggered for me. I remember exactly where I heard you say that for the first time. I was hiking. It was in North Phoenix and some hills off of like Arrowhead or Happy Valley, somewhere up there. And like I remember where I was on the path when I heard you say that, and thinking about that concept of the most important shift is going from being the doer of the thing to being the marketer of the thing, and truly embracing that. And that impacted me in shared practices. That impacted me in dentistry, and I instantly kind of just clicked of like, oh wow, that's super powerful, and also a shift that dentists don't want to make. And so we've maybe belabored this point, but I think thank you for bringing Dan Kennedy to dentistry for me. That was very impactful. I appreciate that.
Let me give one more insight, because I think it'll drive this home, because I understand the skepticism around marketing. It's the old doc in town is going to frown on you when you take out that front page ad. Ask me how I know. But in Titans of Dentistry, when Justin Short and I compiled those things, we were out to prove one thing, that there were all different sorts of paths to success. And putting those together, the thing that I saw was that if we go into dentistry as this one-dimensional thing, which is clinical excellence, our career suffers. But if we come 3D, triple dimensional, become a marketer, become a leader, and have a clinical skill set, that was almost the common denominator, that the thread that ran through all of those stories is that they took, it's called a polymath principle. If you're the best at this and you stack it with really good at this and they're really good at this, you instantly become a category of one, because you've done something in your own unique way, and it has a compound effect. Whereas like being the best dentist in a saturated community, really difficult. But being the best dentist, marketer, leader, something else, it is not hard. But then you start to scale and lever and trend upward in those. There's no upper limit, because people just aren't willing to put in the work to be that trifecta or the quad or whatever you find that your unique passions, curiosities, skill sets lend in creating that skill stack.
That's awesome. Well, we've covered marketing, and we've covered a little bit of innovation. Let's talk a little bit more about that. In what ways, some people say like, how are you gonna do dentistry differently? It's only so hard. But in what ways can we bring innovation to dentistry?
Innovation, I think, needs a broader context. And what I'm trying to do here is take a dentist who's really busy and give them a frame where they can just spend a couple hours every week, what I call CEO time, and be the CEO, be the CFO, be the CMO in kind of a staggered sequence, so that they can get high output. And when you sit down to be the innovator, you're answering the question, how can I provide more value to the marketplace?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not just clinical. We can go back to goodwill. How do we become better at service excellence? We can go back to team building. How do I make sure that they're more confident? What do I need to do what training do I need to do in the next monthly meeting that's the highest and best use of our time? But the reason why we're so fatigued at dentists is we try and do that on the fly while we're a dentist. And it's this content and context switching that is this hugely exhausting. You're worried about the happy patient, the phone call, the this, the that. If you have a place to table all of these things to, a filing cabinet, now you can go in with clarity and make wise decisions, because you can't make wise decisions from a place of fatigue, a place of chaos. So we need a designated place in your schedule where this is where we focus on. And innovation, again, would be, how do I add more value to the marketplace? It may be some strategic, like adding a complex procedure to your procedure mix. So this year I'm going to get really good at molar endo, and I'm going to take this class. This year I'm going to add implants. I'm going to stop referring them. I'm going to take this continuum. That's innovation. Adding new topical that helps you have a painless injection is marketing and innovation. So there's lots of ways to look at this, but if you're constantly adding value to the marketplace, now you become what I was talking about, is this organization that's revitalized at all periods of time. It just keeps getting better. And being stuck in this place, eventually will lead to you being a commodity where you're like, oh, what PPO do I need to take on? This is where you can eject some of the shackles and say, okay, we just keep getting better. Try and keep up with us. Again, who's willing to do this in your market? Like, you quickly become a category one. That's why you see all these young dentists early in their career, they just go on fire because they're willing to do what is necessary to reach the top, and they're adding to their skill sets and they're innovating their practices again and again. So you have clinical systems, you have business systems, you have customer service element and team building that all can fit into this innovation category. And when I say innovation, it's taking out the time and saying, now we have this accordion file of all these opportunities of innovation. What's the next leverage point where we can create an inflection on the services that we provide that makes us more marketable, that makes us a patient more loyal? It may be cone beam 3D imaging. Now I've opened like Amazon Prime for you in innovation. You as a leader just have to decide what's the next commitment and how do we install this before we move on to this commitment. So all of these concepts that we're talking about, I think should be seen as habits. Belief systems, our identity is our habitual stories that we tell ourselves. Systems are the habitual way that we do business, right? This is no different. So, and when we do a habit well, we start small, we make sure it's fully integrated, and we don't add the next thing. The problem with us as dentists is that we like all these bright, shiny objects, and we chase 7 types of CE, and they all end up in binders that don't get deployed. So innovation can be seen as a habit, and you just have to make sure that you're using the science of biology and how you install a habit to make sure that it's committed, it's seen through, and you're not adding the next one until it's either off your plate on somebody else's installing it, or it's fully installed and has become now a part of the normal process of your business.
The George, my partner, I was surprised. This is something recent that I learned. He consistently has time that he calls like CEO time, like where he goes on walks, he just sits and thinks. And I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know that, like, sometimes it's like an hour or two that George is like sitting there thinking about how can we do something different, new, innovate, change, bring something new to the table, and giving yourself permission to have that time and that space. And then also permission to have bad ideas. I was on a lot of my recent bad ideas have to do with TikTok. So I was on TikTok browsing, and a skydiving video pops up, and I was like, I wonder if a dentist did an ad where they skydove and tried to over their city and tried to like point to their practice location, and of course it would fail. Like, this would not work. You're not going to be able to capture on video you pointing to where your practice is. Or something, something involving skydiving. I gave myself permission to think of a bad idea, and that will probably never happen. But at the moment, I was really excited about it.
And it could seed a good idea. I mean, when you go into a brainstorm, like if you teach your team to brainstorm, like, you have to make sure that there's none of this, that, sort of the other thing, because a bad idea can be the seed to a good idea. And so making sure that we're just like not judging, like, we know all the stories about like Post-it notes were a failed operation. The light bulb was a failed operation. So yeah, like, keep a list, keep a whiteboard, keep a journal, like that may seed another idea. And to your point on George, like, once you start to carve out time and shut off your phone and remove yourself from distraction and take more and more time off, you can start to see every moment of your life as productive time. Sleep is productive time. Meeting is as a productive time. Free time is productive time. CEO time is productive time, because now you're all integrated and you're not trying this false notion of work-life balance. It's not effective. If you aren't effective at home, you can't be effective at work. And if you're not effective at work, you can't be. So managing you and who you are, and taking those walks in the woods, and making sure that this like grit thinking isn't the only asset that you're trying to deploy. Like, these are really important components if you're going to have a long, robust career that trends upward.
That's fantastic. So we've explored marketing, we've explored this idea of innovation. This last topic of cost control and cutting costs, a lot of people like that's what they live for. They want like the thrifty deal. They want to be, that's the answer to their problem. Um, Tell us both the value and the limitations associated with this last aspect of cutting costs.
Um, I hate it. I leave it for last for a reason. Like I'm a quick start. Like I like to move fast. I like to make sure that I'm deploying lots of things that are giving me an ROI. And I think when we sit down at the table and we think about cost control, that we're very strategic about it, because what we see in our industry a lot of times is this conversation of, I can't afford that hygienist. Like, really? You think the Chicago Bulls said that they couldn't afford Dennis Rodman to win the championship? Like, it's just a crazy notion, because we're seeing that as a cost. It's not a cost. If we've got the high rapport hygienist that is now our goodwill and sales force, like, you literally can't pay that person enough. So we have to make sure that we know when we go into cost control that our marketing all has to be high ROI. Our team all has to be high ROI. And if we start thinking about our CE as high ROI, there's not much left, because we're trying to get investments we're trying to get an ROI out of our space, our time, our CE, all of these sorts of things. So really what we're looking at here is things that aren't performing for us. Like, I used to have all these like throwaway subscriptions that like a training that I would get to, but they're dinging my credit card $47 a month. This is the time where you say, I'm not using that and I'm not going to. And if I will in 18 months, then I can resubscribe. These are the things where you're looking and making sure that your marketing assets, like, when's the last time we got a call on this newspaper ad? Oh, like 6 months ago. There should be a report for that. How did they hear about you? Okay, it's time to cancel the newspaper ad and take that marketing budget and put it in my pocket or put it somewhere else. So to me, this is just an insurance policy that we're putting as much money in our pocket as possible, because if we're doing all of these things, you should be paid. Like, dentistry, high value skill, dentistry performed well, plus all of these other skill sets. Like, this is where we're getting into a paycheck that should your dollars per hour should just explode. And this is where you can consistently stay in, like, I don't want to work that week, and you don't, and it doesn't affect your paycheck. So a smart business owner will have some CFO time, but in full disclosure, like, it's my least favorable time. I would have my office manager come in with some key reports every morning, 10 minutes before the huddle. I'd kind of keep an eye on how things were going along. And then once a week, I would get hardcore, once a month, I'd get hardcore in the numbers and make sure that I was maximizing ROI or canceling, eliminating things that were costing me. But it got to the point where that was a system too, and that was delegated. So as time goes on, like, my CEO time went from half a day on Friday to 2 hours on Friday to check a few reports and go on and go skiing, that sort of thing. That's when you've got a machine, because you get more and more results with less and less effort, because you're doing all of the things right and you're treating it like a science and not like, let me try this, let me try that. All of these things that I'm telling you are like tried and true systems that you can take this model and put it in a 4 doc practice. You can take it in a 4 location DSO. You can take it to the Pizza Hut. You can take it anywhere and it works, because now we're respecting the humanity of the people that work there and the humanity of the customers, and allowing the income to be the natural byproduct of executing all day, every day, and leaning on some simple pillars that allow us optics as the leader to make sure that things are heading in the right direction perpetually.
That I love that you also don't love this topic.
To respect the sacredness of the topic, like, I'm a growth guy. Like, I don't sit still. Like, I always want to be innovating, and innovating means growth. And for you to say, like, hey, can we get cheaper cotton rolls? Like, I don't, just make sure they're here. As long as this process doesn't slow me down, like, I'm happy, because I know what an hour of my time is worth. I know what 10 minutes of my time is worth. So again, if it's doesn't require a dental license, not a high level CEO activity or doesn't bring me joy, I want someone else to be doing it. And sometimes I might lose $100 here, $200 there, but like, I talk about Bill Gates if he dropped $1,000, he can't afford to bend over and pick it up. Like it's not to be wasteful, but like saying yes to that little minutia sometimes is saying no to like high value activities. So if that's your jam, go after it. That's what brings you joy. It's not what brings me joy at all. Like I want to know that I'm growing, that my best month is going to get better in the next couple months, and do it again and again and again with less work from me. That's to me a powerful enterprise.
Well, this has been so powerful. This whole journey, all 3 of these episodes, your framework that you've built and that you've coached people through and worked people through. If people want to find more about you, about what you do, your podcast, where should people go?
Everything is housed on relentlessdentist.com. And if you don't mind, I have kind of a free offer. One of my quests for 2021 is to impact more people. And I asked myself, how do I do that? And kind of like my concept is to give people tools so that they can have their best year every year. To me, that means I'm teaching them how to fish and I'm not giving them a fish. So in 2021, there's going to be a Facebook group called the Best Year Yet Challenge. Mm-hmm. I'm going to deploy coaching, like some high value nuggets and some worksheets that allow people to coach themselves free of charge. There will be no sales. There will be no cynics, critics, naysayers. Like I think dentistry Facebook groups have enough of those. But what I want to do is answer this call of like, let's put 2020 behind us and let's make a commitment to make 2021 our best year ever. Am I delusional to think like there aren't going to be major challenges in 2021? Like doesn't seem to be slowing down. But what I want to be able to do is take my body of knowledge and deploy that and really help people out, because it's personal to me. Like I've suffered as a dentist and I know what that meant for my family, and I've succeeded as a dentist and I know what that meant for my family, and I know what that means in a ripple through time. So if I can take 100, 1,000 people and give them a framework that allows them to shoot through 21 a lot easier than it did in 2020, I'm happy to do that. So be looking out for that. Again, free Facebook group. December is going to be kind of an on-ramp where I make sure I understand the tech. January is going to be boot camp. And then the rest of the year, I'm just going to kind of provide resources, reach into my network and have conversations that really help people in a big way without an agenda. That's called Revamp, on-ramp, boot camp, Revamp. And then there's free training on my website. So I really appreciate the opportunity. I think you are doing massive good for this industry. Feel like I've tried to be a shepherd against a lot of people like preying on dentists. And I love to connect with people like you and shared practices, because I know that you're taking this pain that is really almost epidemic in our industry, and you're removing people from that pain so that they can have a profession that they thought they were getting into when they applied to dental school. And I know what that means, again, for their families, the team that works for them, the patients they serve. Like these are high leverage conversations that do massive good. Just like you were talking about, like, I didn't know you were listening to that insight, but it shifted your trajectory just a little bit. And then therefore you pay that forward. And that's, I think, the beauty of a podcast and these Facebook groups is that we can make massive change at little cost, get these secrets out of the silos and get it out into practice really as a force of good.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for being a mentor and a friend to me for years and years, and seeing the value you've brought to people, seeing the pivots that you've made have been inspiring to me and have continued to ripple. So these 3 episodes was just another example of the good that you have done and continue to do. So thank you for coming on the show.
My man, it's an honor. Like I know when I'm connected to someone in conversation, because I don't know if it's been 30 minutes or 2 hours, and it's been that level of conversation. So I appreciate the forum and the format and the friendship. It's really powerful and important to me.
Awesome. Likewise. Well, thank you all for listening. This has been another amazing little mini series here with Dr. David Maloley. Really appreciate you coming on the show, and we will talk with you all next time on the Shared Practices podcast.